those are all very helpful because we can see as we start, ascending, or as we start ascending, as we
we're levitating.
As we start assessing. Dude, this is not the week for this topic, though. It really is not, man. I've had some problems with some programs this week.
Oh, that's not good to hear.
Yeah, so I'm participating in the, in the Ambassador World Cup. We did all right. Our team did so. I think we'll make it through. We'll see. But I had a crit this week go internal dupe and it was a crit that had been there for a while on an external surface, and I'm like, come on, man, this is like a competition front, this is a competition program, and they still had that dupe in place for a while back. So I'm a little bit salty at the programs this week, so hopefully I can still bring an unbiased perspective into this episode on how to determine if a program is good or not.
Dang, that's super frustrating. I don't know if this is a popular opinion, but my opinion is that if something is an internal dupe and it's still open after, like, I don't know, set your arbitrary time frame, 6 months, a year, you should just pay for it anyways, because if you haven't fixed it by that point, what an attacker is going to exploit that, right? Nothing is going to stop an attacker.
This bug has been there for 5 years, Joel.
Okay, that is not
years.
6 months.
I know. I'm a little salty. We're working it through. I'm not going to call the program out, but
yeah, you can roast them. You can tell me their name after off air.
Yeah, I'll tell you off air. All right, let's get to the news. Let's see, what do we got today? Okay, so I just wanted to do a little shout out real quick. Jason came on the show last week. It was super fun having him on. He actually released a tool almost right as we aired last week, or a little bit before we recorded, I think, called AWS Scrape, which is a Go tool to monitor AWS IP ranges and alert for SSL certificate data. So this is going to be really cool if you're... Sorry, I just slapped my mic. This is going to be really cool if you are searching for assets that are kind of ephemeral or are kind of just popping up, and so that you can be... jump right on attacking them as soon as they pop up. I used to do this a lot. I kind of edged out of the recon game, but totally viable strategy in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of towing a good line between just like an off-the-shelf tool and a custom home build like recon continuous checking type framework, where you could probably spin this into something pretty easy to help you get a little more visibility, especially for, say, you're targeting a specific program, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But if you're targeting like one specific program and you want to like continuously get alerts when they have new infrastructure pop up, it's probably a really good way to do it. Yeah, for sure. So definitely be, keep that in mind if you're getting ready to look at, implementing something like that for SSL certificates in your recon flow. You want to take one? Let's talk about, Acropalypse. So that was kind of the big news over the last week or two.
That was nuts, dude.
Yeah, so basically there was a vulnerability within the Google Pixel screenshotting cropping mechanism, where if you ever wondered how you can edit an image from your Photos app and then there's a revert button that manages to magically revert it back to its original state, well, this is kind of how that works, and this is abusing that functionality essentially. So they figured out that truncated to the end of the image is essentially a lot of the original image data. And then you can use that to reconstruct it back to the original image to view the full uncropped data. So if you took a screenshot of a sensitive page with a bunch of information on it, you crop it down to just the little relevant part, you would be able to reverse that back. And then a couple days later, they found that the Windows snipping tool is also vulnerable to this same type of attack. Yeah, so it was a 0 day in the Pixel stuff, and then somebody replied and was like, "Hey, it was interesting. I took a screenshot with the snipping tool, and it looks like it has a lot of that same data on the end. You might want to look into that."
Does it have? Do you know if it's like? Is this the exact same process, or is it just like the snipping tool also sort of made that similar mistake in embedding that metadata?
It seems like it's almost identical based
Oh
on
my
what
gosh.
the researcher what was his name?
Yeah,
David.
look at this cropped.
Yeah, so based on
original.
what the researcher David Buchanan mentioned,
Mm.
it seems like it's very, very similar. It's just a difference between like RGB and RGBA with like
Wow.
transparency.
Dang, dude, that's nuts. Yeah, look at this. It's almost fully. He got a almost fully recovered image out of that.
Yeah, it's super wild. So it's a really interesting, really dangerous vulnerability, especially depending on the image hosting service that you've used. Like, I think
Yeah.
one of the examples was Discord, where this doesn't have to do with EXIF data. It's not like they're not stripping metadata. This is separate. It's the image file itself has extra data attached to it that you would be able to use to extract the original image. So even if you uploaded like a photo to Discord 5 years ago or whatever, that could potentially that photo could be vulnerable
yeah.
to this, and you could extract it. So it's just something to be aware of. I know that he tweeted out some preventative measures. So, for example, one of the measures that he suggests is from a server side, you could write a filter within your web, your web server, basically like an Nginx plugin or something like that. That would strip out the end data so that you're only left with the original image, and that would work retroactively and all that kind of stuff. So there are definitely options if this is something that you or your company might be struggling with, but it's definitely one of those like really gnarly bugs that is going to have a lot of mess surrounding it that's going to be kind of hard to clean up.
Yeah, man, because any picture cropped within that, in the past is out there, and there's nothing you can do to really modify that at this point besides, I guess if you're hosting an image, you can modify that by, actually modifying the file itself and stripping off that data at the end. But like, who wants to do that?
I know,
That sounds awful.
It's so wild. Dude, it's funny because on the original tweet thread, somebody replied and was like, hey, so let's say I've been sending cropped images from Google phones to Discord for about 6 years.
Oh no!
How fucked am I? And the researchers replied and was like, well, it depends on a few factors, but given that there's 6 years of images, I would guess pretty fucked.
Oh my god, dude! Yeah, that's bad. I wonder, did they report this to Google, and did it get a bounty? I'm pulling it up right now. Let's see.
They did report it to Google. That was actually the interesting thing. I was looking to see if it got a bounty, and I did not see it, at least on the original thread. I'm sure they must have gotten one, unless there was some
P3
really weird.
S3 on Google's internal issue tracker. I found it from, if you go to the blog post exploiting Acropalypse, and then you click on his blog, at the very end there's like an issue tracker, and then it says fixed S3 P3, but no bounty assigned. So I don't know, man. If they didn't give a bounty for that, that's pretty whack, because that's a very impactful bug, I think.
Yeah, it's super wild. It feels like one of those things that would be worth like, 30K, 50K, 100K,
absolutely.
something like that. One of those really, really groundbreaking ones.
Yeah.
So I do hope that they got a bounty, or will get one soon, and they might even be eligible. That might be one of those things that's eligible for the Google Play rewards thing or something like that. Some extra bounty. Like that. But yeah, really cool bug. It was really interesting. If you haven't given it a read, go read the original blog post because it's so interesting. It was another one of those kind of bugs that just popped up out of nowhere, like by accident. And they were like, I wonder if this is possible, and just kind of explored that route. And it ended up being a really bad, really critical vulnerability. So it's a really interesting story. It's a really well-written blog post, and it's a super interesting vulnerability altogether.
Sometimes you just got to go after that curiosity, man. You got to feed that curiosity, because sometimes it works itself into some crazy vulns like this one.
Yeah, cool. Speaking of vulns in really bad, like really critical core modules, you want to talk about the SSRF that Doyensec found?
Yeah, man, that was pretty gnarly. So this was another blog post. Actually, this one came out almost 2 weeks ago now, but I just seen it recently. This is a SSRF filter bypass in node requests library, which is a pretty core deal. And so it looks like, just from reading this over, the TLDR of it is essentially if you do a redirect to localhost or something like that when you're using this SSRF request filter plugin, and that request is the same, uses the same scheme, so HTTP website to HTTP website, then it catches it. But if you send it to an HTTPS website, originally, and then you redirect to an HTTP website, then somehow it just bypasses the whole check. And if you look at the code in this blog, dude, look at this. It's just, oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Request URI equals protocol.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and then it literally just skips the whole thing if you don't have.
It's just like, oh, just delete the agent. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of nuts. This is not something that I was testing for. Let's see. First disclosure to maintainer was 2022 in December. So if your companies haven't patched for this very well may still be out there. And definitely something to take a look at. And I think this is particularly nasty because, like, for example, well, I imagine a lot of people just use HTTP for their little like POC redirect server, right? Because no one really wants to like spin up, get an SSL certificate, especially those people that are doing sort of cloud first and just kind of spinning up stuff when they need it. A lot of that stuff is going to be HTTP based, I'd imagine. And this is also probably going to have SSL verification, so it's not like you can just spin up like a temp SSL certificate or anything. So definitely something to be keeping in mind and to test with. Get a full HTTPS set up on your testing callback server and do a redirect from HTTPS to HTTP and see if you can bypass some of those HTTP filters or those redirect filters on SSRFs.
Yeah, I think as a tester, this would be something I would probably just put in my normal testing criteria. From a exploitability perspective, it does seem like it has just like basically one mitigating factor, which is that the root is through this agent thing. And I hadn't actually heard about, I wasn't familiar with what the agent was or what it was used for. And it looks like it's essentially a way for you to manage connections within like an application. So if you want to reuse connections for more efficiency or that type, or if you want to filter certain connections, that was the example that was given, then you could do it with an agent. And so basically when it changes protocols, it deletes the agent. And so all of your checks that might be within your agent get bypassed. So if you're a hacker and you don't know, like, are they using an agent or not? Give it a test. And if you're a company and you're not sure if you're vulnerable, just look and see if you're using an agent. And if you're not, you're probably okay. But if you can upgrade, just do it. Get
your source code grepping tools ready. Because, that's going to be pretty bad. I think this would also, be fixed by a decent patch cycle. If you're patching your stuff on a regular basis and making sure that these core libraries like request are up to date, then you should be fine too. But that doesn't always happen, as we know.
True.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see. ZDI was the only other thing that I wanted to talk about, dude. They had like a crazy. So we don't really, I guess, in my sphere of bug bounty, we're mostly talking about HackerOne and BugCrowd and Integrity and all them. And I don't hear us talking about ZDI quite as much, but every time the competition pops up, it's pretty exciting. And I kind of want to go for it at some point. Like I've only done HackerOne live hacking events. I've done a BugCrowd one. I think maybe I did 2 BugCrowd ones, but besides that, just HackerOne. And the ZDI model seems pretty cool. They just kind of give you some targets in advance, and you earn these Masters of Pwn, and obviously large sums of money in conjunction with them. And I think a couple teams actually, the Tesla was a target for some of these teams, and Synactive, and then one other team. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, one other team. Yeah, they also pwned the Tesla, which is kind of nuts. And I think they walked away with $250K, which is crazy.
Yeah, super crazy. It was really interesting to see the recap. It's cool because I think the recap was just a couple days ago, and it looks like they paid out just over $1 million to the teams. So all in all, I mean, that's up to par, even past some of the live hacking events that we've been to, and it's really awesome to see that kind of research. I think we don't talk a lot about ZDI because... And I'm not sure how much this is still the case, but at least early on, they were kind of like the black sheep of the bug bounty world, where it wasn't like official, like you're not reporting it directly to the company and stuff.
Right.
Take a look at their website. It seems like they're more like legit and stuff, but it is still kind of a weird profit incentive to think about. Like basically, you're selling the vulnerability to the ZDI, and then they're going to work with the vendor and stuff to help like disclose it, but they still have that bug in the middle, and it's a little bit interesting to think about what they might be doing with that bug, if anything, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to speculate too much, but you can probably use your imagination. And
No, absolutely. And I hope the sponsors are involved, straight from the beginning, straight from when the reports come in. one of the other things that I've heard about ZDI, which is a little bit interesting, is you have a 5-minute slot. So these are fully formed exploits. Let me just say that as well. And these are not normally like, I mean, sometimes they have like, hit this web endpoint and get an RC exploits. But a lot of the times when you see the write-ups for them, they're talking about, binary exploitation stuff. And one of the, so you and I, you remember when we were working on that bug that we still haven't talked about, but it took a couple minutes, but then it took over the whole device, right?
Right.
So I was researching because I was like, all right, this device had been a target for ZDI in the past, and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could have done it at the event? I was researching a little bit, and one of the things that I found was that when you're demoing your bug for the competition, for the Ponton competition, the exploit has to successfully trigger in a 5-minute window, which is pretty freaking short and sounds hella stressful. Because like if you're doing like race conditions, if you're doing any of these complex attacks that we've been talking about with like brute forcing, that might take a little bit of time, but you pwn the device in the end, those might not be eligible for this attack or for this bounty through ZDI. And yeah, I think that's a little bit unfortunate because, I think there's going to be some good bugs they're missing out on that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's kind of cool that it's sort of a culmination. Like you have to perform well, right? It's not just for having the cool bug. It also has to work basically first time, right? It has to be a perfectly executed exploit chain. And I assume you have to do this on like a brand new device, right?
Yeah,
so they bring in like a brand new motherboard or whatever from the Tesla, and they're like,
sure, exploit
this. And you just hope that your testing device was on the same version and everything works the same and all that kind of stuff. Because if it doesn't, then there goes your 250K.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking through here. It says on one of their tweets from March 24th is Star Labs team was not able to get their exploit on Microsoft Teams working in the allotted amount of time. And I'm like, oh, that's got to kill. That's got to be so
And I'm sure they all went back to the lab and got it working in 5 minutes.
I know. And, we complain about dupes and stuff like that. But, like, this guy is literally, they have this fully formed exploit. And then it just, something messes up. And they couldn't get it for 5 minutes. And now that cost goes to much lower. I'm sure their prize goes to much lower. So kind of unfortunate, but it still looks like a fun thing. I'm not sure I would go all at it and like try to hit all of these different devices that they're doing, but I would definitely take a stab at some of the hardware devices because we've been focusing on that a little bit more lately, and that's been really fun. So
yeah, for sure.
All right, let's see. Where do we want to go from here? We can dive right into let's dive right into it. Okay, so first. So our topic for today is how to determine if a program is a good program. I think this is going to help people when you're starting out in bug bounty. You're not exactly familiar with what indicators you should look for in a good program. So Joel and I are going to talk about some of the things we look at when we look at a bounty brief and kind of talk through what it means for us to be sort of a good program. So Joel, I'm going to put you on the spot, man. Hit me with some of your top program. I guess we can't because they're going to be private programs in there too. Can you talk about any of your top favorite programs? I'm going to go check if one of mine is private or not.
And I'll just preface by like most of them are in the World Cup right now. But Yahoo, Shopify, those are probably my top two. And then I don't know if I can list the third one because it's a private program. So yeah, those are probably my top two. And I'll say the main reasons, at least like right off the top of my head, and we'll go into these, but it's how easy it is and how adaptable they are towards like actual hackers hacking on their program. For example, preceding accounts, letting you sign up with We Are HackerOne, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And just ability to triage, ability to have good payouts, ability to handle things in an efficient manner, ability to have a wide enough scope for you to stay interested for long periods of time. Like those things are kind of difficult. It's not, I'm phrasing it as ability to, right? But it's not really an ability. It's like, do you have lots of servers? Yes or no? It's right. Nothing. There's no like inherent ability that you have lots of servers.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Those are definitely some top indicators. For me, I've got Instacart and PayPal on my list. I really like those two programs. The third one I would really like to shout out, but it's a private program. I'm just going to say it's a big bank, and they have a responsible disclosure program on HackerOne, and yeah, they just, really, cool I'm trying to think of some, inverted way to tell you who it is, but let's just say they're the one that I want to hack on. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, subtle. Oh, okay.
I didn't say anything. I can't be held liable. Yeah, those are my top three, and I'll double click into that for just a second. So Instacart has been a really good program to me. I'm gonna go pull up my their page really quick and kind of talk through some of the reasons why that's the case. First of all, the bounty ranges are really competitive. So if you pull up their brief, HackerOne.com/Instacart, 20K crits, $7,500 highs, 3K mediums, $500 lows. Obviously, these are this is something I'll point out that maybe a lot of newcomers would miss. When you see these numbers, it says right underneath there, payouts are our typical maximum for a submission based on severity. So just because it says 3K for a medium doesn't mean you're going to get 3K for a medium. You could get $501 for a medium because that's the range between low and medium. So I want to keep that in mind. But also, the Instacart team has been very responsive, very willing to, pay good bounties based off of impact assessment that I've kind of talked through with them. And I think that's really important in a program.
Yeah, and I think that highlights a lot of the same things that I talked about where, like, when you're hacking on something long-term and a lot, you want a good working relationship with the program, essentially, right? So you want to be able to communicate with them efficiently. You want them to appreciate the work that you're putting in as much as the work that they're putting in to fix it, right?
Yeah.
And talk with you and have payouts and maintain the report and all that kind of stuff. It takes effort from both sides. And so I think when there's sort of that mutual respect from both the program and the hacker, that adds a lot of value to your hacking experience.
Yeah, I think that means, and I think that mutual respect can be shown a lot of ways. It can be respect for each other's time by responding quickly to, responses on the report. It can be communicating in a professional way. So many times you see the, bloody taxi driver report kind of pop up in HackerOne circles where somebody just totally went off on an Uber driver or on an Uber program, calling them bloody taxi driver. But, we don't want to be abusive with our words. That's never going to get you a bounty. I've never seen someone coming in there saying, listen here, you guys, like, you better beepity pay me some money, and then get paid. So definitely, keeping that communication clean and professional. And for me, I also struggle with keeping it concise. I often will just be like, typity type and pop out this whole list, but then I'll just delete it and I'll go back and I'll look, I could accomplish this in 3 sentences. So I just need to keep it clean, keep it smooth. And I think that does a lot for the relationship with the program too, because they've got a lot of reports they're responding to. And that's a big burden on them if they have to read, a novel every time you send in a report. So. Yeah,
I think I think we talked a little bit in an earlier episode about report writing, but that's one of those things where you don't want to be too verbose. Early on, when you're new to bug bounty, I think it's very easy to feel like you need to fully explain every little part, how you got there and what your thought process was and stuff. And it makes for a cool blog post, or it makes for a fun reading the report in retrospect. But I think it's better to just be clear and concise and to the point and describe the vulnerability less than the thought process, so that they can just be like, okay, this is what's going on, and understand it really easily instead of having to read through blocks and blocks of text.
Yeah, for sure. So Joel, let's put this in a hypothetical here. I'm going to send you. I can send you right now on Discord. You can come look at the Instacart team bounty brief.
Cool.
Look at that and tell me how you read this. What are the things you look at right away? What things stands out to you? Where do your eyes jump when you look at this brief?
Yeah, sure. So, the first thing I'm looking at is the bounty table. And like you said, is it mins or maxes? And generally speaking, what is their feeling for highs and crits? I think that's the most important thing. How much money are they putting where their mouth is? in terms of high and critical vulnerabilities. Are they willing to pay $50,000? Are they willing to pay $5,000? Are they willing to pay $500? Are they willing to pay $50? Right? Like, we've seen all across the board. Like, I think one of our buddies just the other day was just saying, "Oh, I just got added to this program, and they pay $50 highs and $100."
Oh my gosh, dude, it was
like,
crazy. Yeah,
I understand every company's not just rolling in money and stuff, but that feels like a little bit of a low priority on your security, if you ask me. Especially when you're trying to incentivize people to spend time finding security vulnerabilities on your company.
Yeah, and validated POC or GTFO vulnerabilities, because if you're just going to pay, and I think we've had some programs in the past do that, if you read through the activity, if you're going to pay everybody who submits a report like, hey, you missed these headers, hey, SPF record, blah blah, DMAR, whatever, then you're incentivizing bad behavior in the bug bounty community, because those reports don't get accepted elsewhere. So people are going to submit one report, get a $50 bounty from you, and then get screwed for the rest of their bug bounty career. But also, you're going to get a bunch of, crappy no POC bugs. And at the end of the day, that's not what bug bounty is about. Bug bounty is about handing them, this is my opinion maybe, but I feel like this is pretty well backed up in the community. But I feel like bug bounty is about, most of the time handing them an actionable item that's going to make changes in their code right away, that it oftentimes is attached a beautiful POC that's going to demonstrate impact, and prove something that needs to change. So if you have $50 bounties or whatever, and you're just throwing them out like candy to everyone, you might be paying the same amount, but I think you're getting a lot less bang for your buck, because you're not attracting the right kind of hackers, and you're incentivizing poor behavior in the bug bounty community.
Right. And I feel like if you're paying $50 because you realize you have a lot of vulns and you don't want to be going broke, then maybe address why you have so many vulns. Like, this is one of the cruxes of like a well-paying program, right? Yeah. On one hand, it's awesome that they are well-paying and that they have high bounties. On the other hand, it's kind of terrifying that they're paying so much money for vulnerabilities over and over again, because you should be stopping vulnerabilities.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, anyways, I'll leave that at that. We can keep going through. So the next thing I'd probably look at is efficiency. I read it from top down, as you would look at it on HackerOne or whatever. Yeah. So I'm looking at the response efficiency section, and average time to first response, that's a pretty good metric to see sort of how responsive are they? How active are they? If they have H1 triage, then that metric kind of just doesn't matter, because triage will always respond within SLA.
Yeah, and you can see up at the top right-hand corner, just for those of you new to HackerOne, if you say, if you, right next to the submit report button, if you look to the right of that, it'll tell you when the program launched, and it'll also say managed by HackerOne, if it's managed by HackerOne. And if it is, like Joel said, you're always going to get an SLA response from the triagers, and they're going to be responding within a certain period of time. So, yeah. Yeah,
and I'm glad that you brought that up, the launch date. That's another thing. I might even look at that before the bounty table and stuff. Yeah. But typically, I'm going to look at that sort of in conjunction with the things I'm talking about right here with efficiency and right onto statistics. So as I'm looking at efficiency, those things matter, sort of. But again, if it's a managed program, generally those things are going to be kind of within normal spec. It's probably going to be at least 90% hitting SLA over the last 90 days. The response times are probably going to be pretty good. The longer that you do this, I think the less emphasis that I put on, like, I want a program to have this paid out in a week or whatever. Like, I understand that things take time. I'll submit other bugs. Hopefully those get paid out first, whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as a professional bug bounty hunter, as a full-time bug bounty hunter, there's this concept of a pipeline too that I've heard a couple other bug bounty hunters, full-time bug bounty hunters talk about, Alex Chapman, Yassine, them. Once you kind of get rolling, you've got unpaid bugs that are, sitting in the queue waiting for them to get paid as you're finding new bugs, as you're keeping on moving. And those bugs of the past are paying your current expenses, and while you're finding the bugs for next week and the week after that. So a lot of people would say, when thinking about full-time bug bounty, like, I'm sure it's important for you to have like a quick payout. It's not really super important. It is important to me from a motivation perspective, because, if I submit a report, I would like to get positive feedback for that report, make sure that I'm understanding the threat model correctly before I invest more time, researching on that company and developing my understanding of the threat model even more, I want to know whether I'm on the right path. So that it is important for that metric, but it's not quite important as important for a full-time bounty hunter as pertains to like just getting your normal salary and paying your day-to-day bills.
Yeah, but I think that is an important point, especially if you are somebody who hacks full-time and you're going to be hacking on one program. That's something to definitely consider if they're going to be paying out fast or slow, because how long of a buffer do you need to have reports in their queue for them to be paying out before you start making money? If it takes them 6 months to pay out a report, well, then you got to be submitting reports for 6 months because you got a delay on that by 6 months.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Instacart thing here, and I believe that this program has a little bit of a delay. Like the response statistics here, it says average time to bounty is about a month. I've actually had a lot better experience with them than a month. It's normally two weeks ish for me, which I think is pretty good. Ideally, it would be around a week, but 2 weeks makes a lot of sense to me. I know they do weekly meetings to pay out their vulns and assess severity and that sort of thing. So that's good. Depending on when you submit it, you might hit one of those or two of those. If you submit right before they do their meeting, then it might get in that meeting or it might not. So I definitely look at that metric too. That's one of the first things that I look at when I get to a brief.
Yeah, it's good to hear like that perspective as well. I think it's kind of maybe something that I take for granted, having worked on the other side at companies that have bounty programs where you know much more how the process is going. Yeah, they're a company. They have employees, the two other things. So generally there's probably a weekly or bi-weekly meeting where they get together and they talk about the bounties and stuff. That's often why there are delays on bounties, because it's just a company, it's being run by employees who have other things to do. It's just a meeting that they go to and they take care of stuff. And as much as that's your top focus, if you're doing a lot of bug bounty, it's not always their top focus. So you just have to remember that as you're doing your hacking and you're like, where's my bounty?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you've worked with a couple companies that have bug bounty programs. Is that the normal flow? Every week you have a meeting, or?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, depending on the size of the program and how frequently you get reports, you might handle it just sort of ad hoc and right off the bat. I think a lot of companies now are pushing to try and pay on triage. So once they basically validated that it's a valid finding, they try and pay the bounty as soon as they can, and they recognize, okay, this is something valid. We'll give you your money because we understand the severity, we understand the impact, and then we can work on fixing it. You can be happy and keep hacking on us and get your money, and hopefully sort of build that rapport between the researcher and the program.
Yeah, I think Shopify was one of the programs that first brought that into place. Yeah, it says if you submit a valid and bounty eligible report, we will pay you within 7 days of triage.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool. I would love to see more programs, do that, because it's definitely motivating, and it's also the bigger thing for me is validating my understanding of the threat model for the company, and seeing how they respond and how they rate the severity of the bug, so that I can know what areas I need to focus on within the app. Yeah,
100%. Cool. So generally, one of the last things that I look at, going back to the program, like how I look at programs, is those program statistics about bounties. So I will usually use that in conjunction with the launch date to understand how old is this program and what are their total bounties, and then use that to start doing some of the averages along with the data that's in there. So for example, total bounties paid on Instacart right now is about 400K. The program has been around for just about a year. It's launched in February 2022. It's March 2023, so it's about 400K in a year. That's honestly a lot of reports for that amount of time. And it says that their average bounty range is $150 to $250.
Yeah, I think that is because of the changes to the bounty table.
Yeah, and so I don't know what it looked like before, although you could probably step back and look at it. But I try not to take too much of that consideration, because that average is across all of their bounties, right?
Yeah.
So of their 400K, you can be almost certain that 80% of those are literally just like bottom of the barrel type, low hanging fruit, like lows. And that's why that average bounty is $150 to $250, because it's not critical things, but they are valid reports. If you look at their top bounty range, that's probably when I would start to be like, okay, how likely is it that they're going to pay something really bad? And if so, what are they paying you for it, right?
Yeah.
So that'll typically show like the very top end of the bounties that they paid. If they've ever paid a full max crit, which they have, right? Their top bounty range is 2,000 to 20,000.
Yeah.
So that means they've at least paid a really bad medium, and they've definitely paid a 10 out of 10 critical.
Yeah.
So that means it's out there and it exists, and they care about it, and they put the money where their mouth is, and that says a lot.
Yeah, I think also the other thing that the average bounty range kind of says to me as well is if it is on this lower end, in their low range rather than in their medium range, I think this also speaks to the fact that they are probably a pretty accepting program. So, if you have something that's kind of like, I'm not sure that this is like, super great. I have a pretty high standard for bugs. But sometimes I'll find something that's just kind of like, I'm not sure. I might take a look at this, see, what kind of bounties they're paying, and say, okay, well, if their average range is a little bit closer to the low, that means there's probably been more lows accepted. So the company might be more willing to pay something that's, a very minimal leak in confidentiality, or like a very minimal modification in integrity with an attack complexity high or something like that. Whereas other programs might sort of just say, that's not a vulnerability. So that's another, way you can think through it.
Yeah, for sure. And I will generally combine that with the next two things, which is bounties in the last 90 days and reports received in the last 90 days.
Yeah.
To sort of calculate a second average. That's basically a 90-day running average of roughly how much bounty are they paying now? Like in the last 3 months, are they actively paying mostly $150 bounties, or are they paying higher than that? So in 90 days, they paid $22,450. They've resolved 114 reports, and their last report was resolved 6 days ago.
Yeah.
So that tells me three things. One, they're paying pretty good bounties. 20K in 3 months, that's not nothing. That's a couple thousand a month. That means that there's at least some stuff in there that's worth looking for.
For sure.
100 reports resolved. That's a pretty good amount of activity. So just be aware that there's lots of eyes on it.
And that means a lot of, those reports I think also include like things that are in, not just in resolved as in like the state resolved, but if you put something in duplicate, if you put something in informative, if you put something in NA. So, think 80% of those are going to be garbage.
Right.
Because it's a public program. So that can also help skew your statistics for what actually the bounties look like.
Yeah, but if I see like last 90 days total bounties paid like 3,000, that means either their security program, their security team is insane.
Yeah.
They have a small hardened scope, or nobody's hacking.
Yeah.
So you some context clues, you can probably do some hunting to figure out which one of those cases it is, or maybe it might be something completely different that we didn't mention. But these are generally the types of things that we're getting in, like feels from the program as we're just sort of looking through it. And then the last thing that I generally look at is scope. Nowadays, it's very common to have broad scope, I would say. It, maybe 5 years ago, most places would have like one website or like just our main website, because there was sort of that fear over what hackers would do. But I think over time, the community has shifted and realized that it doesn't really matter what hackers are going to, like what bug bounty hunters are going to do, because hackers are going to do whatever the hell they want. Exactly. So you have to have everything in scope. Otherwise, it doesn't matter if it's out of scope. My bad. The hackers aren't going to hack us then. Like, no, that doesn't matter. Hackers don't know what scope is. They don't care. So, non-ethical hackers.
Right.
We hackers, good hackers.
Bad
White hat
actors.
Yeah, sorry, bad actors. Yeah, bad actors are like a scope. What's that?
Yeah.
Scope is kind of one of those things that I'll look at just to see if there's anything really explicitly out of scope. But generally, most of the things that a company owns, oftentimes a wildcard domain or a wildcard subdomain, that'll be in scope, and that's always a great sign because it just means that it's free range. Just look, find a vulnerability, submit a vulnerability, and that's the main thing that I look for. That's all like surface level. If I want to go any deeper than that, I might start looking through the specifics, like writings within the program policy to see what things they might have noted down. Do they have specific testing procedures? Do I have to put a header in my requests? Any of that kind of stuff. That's what I might scan for within the policy text. But a lot of the times, most of the preliminary data that's going to determine whether or not I'm even going to look at a program is within those couple of boxes. It's what are their rewards, what's their response like, what are their overall bounties, total and over the last 90 days, and how long has the program been out to sort of gauge, what's the payout range look like over a period of time?
Yeah, for sure. I was actually, so I was going to bring up another thing relating to that, and I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to do it right now because I think, yeah, that's funny. BugCrowd is going through some scheduled maintenance as we're recording this right now.
This is great timing.
Yeah, okay. No, the cached, I can use the cached version here. Man, it doesn't have the data I need though. So I was going to talk about one program, Pinterest on BugCrowd. And kind of talk about them as an example. So if you look at their setup, it says that criticals are 25K or up to 25K, but then highs are like, and I don't want to quote it wrong since I'm not exactly even looking at it anymore, but I want to say they were like a couple grand. Yeah, here they are right here. I've got it in a screenshot. So P1s are 20K to 25K, and then P2s, this is on BugCrowd, are 2,500 to 3,500. So like a tenth of a high or of a critical.
That's quite a range.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about relating to this was I always look at what a program pays for mediums, as well as what they pay for crits, because those are my two main anchor points. Like the highs, okay, I do look at that and it is important, but for me the anchor points are mediums and crits, because at the end of the day, I'm always trying to find a crit. But you know how we do here at Critical Thinking, always trying to find the crits. But at the end of the day, when you're finding crits, in the process of finding crits, you're going to find a lot of mediums. And I think it's nice to have a good payout for the mediums when you're continuing your journey there. So my normal standard is I want to see the mediums. Actually, before this episode, I've been saying that I would like to see my mediums at 700, at least 750. But with the way that the industry's been moving lately, it might even start, moving a little bit more towards 1,000 for the mediums. That's kind of where I want to see those, landing.
For minimum, Bounty?
Yeah. I mean, for minimum would be great. The average, hitting around 750 to 1,000 would be good. So if you look at the Instacart program, their mediums are 3K. I had a buddy lately who submitted a medium and got paid out $2,500. And that's amazing. That's a great day of hunting right there. It was one day. He's one of my mentees, and he found a great bug and got a great payout for it. And so, a lot of people get distracted by the big numbers, but at the end of the day, you're probably going to find more mediums. And so if you pay attention to those, you'll also walk away with some extra money in your pocket.
Yeah,
So.
I totally agree. I think you're more likely to hit on sort of either side of a high, where you're either going to find something that's not quite a high, or you're going to find something that is definitely not a high and is more of a crit. Sometimes it'll be on the fence between a high and a crit, and that's where I would emphasize report writing and demonstrating impact and chaining vulnerabilities to try and really push it away from the barrier and really into the critical range. But if, most of the time you're going to find something that's, it's a vulnerability, it's nothing crazy, it's whatever, and it's a medium. Or you're going to find something that's really, really bad and is a critical. Yeah,
for sure. I totally agree. So let's see. I want to go back to this list here because we have a little list in the doc of some things here. One of the things that you wrote down that I thought was interesting was like, what is the gap between the number 1 hacker and the number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 hacker? What does that tell you about the program?
Yeah, so this is something that I always find really interesting, especially for public programs. I like 75% of the time, it's always like one of those like top 3 people who has an insane recon scanning automation system built up, like Nagly or Try to Hack or Today is New. Mm-hmm. However, especially when it's not one of those people, that's when I get really interested, because it's somebody who's probably spent a lot of time on that program. They're very familiar. They've done the deep dive, and they're very, very familiar with the inner workings of that program and their infrastructure, and that's what's letting them create that gap, right? But something is happening between like top number 1 and number 2. Oftentimes it's like 1,000 reps, sometimes even more, depending on the program and depending on the hacker. And I think those are really interesting cases to figure out, what does that person know about the program, or what has that person figured out that lets them get 1,000 a rep ahead and have so many more crits or highs than the other people who are hacking and looking at the same scope? And how can I replicate that kind of, either it's attack methodology or how they're writing the report or whatever?
So does that come across as, so say you see someone, 2K rep, the next person's like 400 rep or something like that. How does that make you feel? Does that deter you? Does that encourage you? Does that have a neutral impact on your decision to work on that program, or what?
It's a little bit of both, so especially if it's somebody I know personally. I'm like, oh, they've already sweeped this program. And they found everything. But yeah, like if it's like, I don't want to make Nick because I don't want to set that kind of precedent. But, if it's somebody that like I'm familiar with, who I like have a lot of respect for and their hunting skills, I would generally probably start to assume that I'm going to find like a rare vulnerability if they're like that far ahead. But it's also kind of a challenge, right? It's like, can I find something that they haven't found? Or I might reach out to them and ask like, what are some of the insights you have about this program? See if they're willing to discuss it, maybe work together on something.
Yeah, I really like that when I know, just from the live hacking scene or just from the hacker scene in general, the person that, really crushes the program that I'm working on, because it's always nice to get their insight. And I would say, like, for example, the PayPal program, they have some really very active top hackers, right? These guys are, I'm just checking right now and make sure that I can say, I'm not going to say so the guy in first place, Alex Beerson, he's phenomenal, worked with him a bunch. So Joe Hash is how I'll refer to him. The guy in second place with 2,300 rep, both of those guys are legendary at PayPal. And if you have a question about PayPal, they know it, but also there's a lot of bugs there. I mean, clearly they've been finding bugs consistently for years, and there's enough space for them. There's enough space for Ron. There's enough space for all of the other people on that list as well, which means there are bugs to be found there still. So when I see that, I'm a little bit like, sometimes I'm a little like, if somebody has a very similar testing style to me, for example, Space Raccoon and I would collide on bugs all the time for a while. If Space Raccoon was like the number one, I'd be like, But besides that, it's normally like you said, a challenge.
Yeah. I also like to look at hacktivity when I see like a top hacker and just see, are they still really active on this program? Are they submitting a lot of reports? If so, are they getting sometimes they have the bounties disclosed, sometimes they don't, but are they getting high bounty payouts? That's another good sort of like testing the water type thing that you can do, where just look in the hacktivity and see if they have bounties disclosed on the reports that they're closing, and see roughly, what are they paying regularly? Are they paying out, some guy is getting 3,000, has he found some crazy, systemic vulnerability that you should be testing for? Like, what is it? But that's also a really good sort of rough test that you can do to see what's going on at the program.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you nailed it. That's a positive thing if you're seeing these bugs coming through, because it means that the program will pay if you find the bugs, and that's really the concern here. When you come, I think it's a common mistake that beginners make to come to these programs to be like, I'm going to use Eric as an example because he wouldn't mind. Today's new has like 15,000 rep here, this is crazy. I'm never going to find anything. Guys, Eric does predominantly external testing. If you log in, if you pass the login screen, you've probably seen more of that app than Eric has. And so and that's his thing, and he crushes it, and he finds amazing bugs on so many different targets, but he doesn't look internally. So, if you see today's new, that I remember actually pretty clearly a time on a tweet where some new person newer to bug bounty tweeted out something like, when you get a new private program invite and then you see this and it's like a picture of Eric at number one with however many rep. I was like, no, bro, don't pass on that invite.
Yeah. That just means they have lots of dangling domains. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. Just log into the app, so I think that's a common misconception that hopefully we've cleared up here.
Yeah. And I like, one of the things about the hacktivity that I really like on BugCrowd specifically is that in their disclosed things, separate from the bounty, they also talk a little bit about what part of the scope the report's on. So you can get a rough idea for where are people looking, where are the bugs surfacing themselves? Is it in the API? Is it in the front end? Is it on the mobile app? Is like wherever.
Was that BugCrowd or was that Synac?
I think I think they actually both do it.
Oh, do they both do it? Okay.
Synac does it as well. Synac even, I think they disclose part of the report title or something like that.
Oh, really?
But,
okay.
Yeah, but BugCrowd will basically just say like, in this scope, they got this bounty.
Nice.
Or actually, I think they just say like what severity it was. I don't even know if they say the bounty, but regardless, it's just a little more information that will help you glean sort of where you might want to focus or not focus, depending on what you're seeing.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually, here it is. I had something in the doc as well. So the known issues tab is really cool on BugCrowd as well. I would really wish HackerOne would implement something like this where there's a little bit transparency on how many unique issues there are outstanding that have not been resolved yet in the program. Because one of the things that I really want to know when I come into a program is like, hey, are you fixing bugs? You know, what are the chances of me coming in here and finding a dupe like I did this past week and lost out on a big payout crit because they're not fixing the bugs? That's really painful for me. And even as an experienced bug hunter, you know, I've gotten probably at this point hundreds and hundreds of dupes. And, I guess maybe the pain of it has been a little bit, removed from me for a little while because I haven't had one that really punched me in the gut lately. But this one really took the wind out of me and stopped my testing for a couple days because I was just really like, man, why is this happening? And so, it definitely happens, and you just that's part of the game. You got to get up, you got to keep working on it. But I think something like this with the known issues indicator for HackerOne would really add a lot of transparency to that issue, and also force programs to stay on top of resolving, or else maybe their SLA light would go red or something like that.
Yeah, I think overall one of the more positive trends I've seen from programs is that they have slowly added certain things that are common across either a program policy or a submission process into the application itself. And what I mean by that is, for example, integrity. When you submit a bug, they have additional fields for what was your IP address during testing, and you can add customizations and stuff like that into the actual form that the hacker is typing into when they submit a bug. And those types of things probably on HackerOne would just be in your report template or something when they go to create a new report. And just that additional little step where it's integrated into the application, where it's an extra field or it's an extra tab or something that you can click, like known issues, right? Instead of putting that in your policy, it's a tab on the program page that says, these are the known issues. So as a hacker, I don't have to read through each program's policy and decide, have they put known issues in their policy page, or have they skipped over that entirely? Are there things I need to know about? Instead, I can just click the known issues tab and see what they've listed there. Absolutely
agree. Having some standardization for that would be huge. And it would also allow you, in a lot of cases, to programmatically filter. Where if you're doing the hacking, you're pretty familiar with APIs and how they work and such. And so, there's when you're building out your own automation, or you're really searching for a program to go after, having something like that could help you filter down and in your own automation as well.
Yeah, for sure. So anything that programs or platforms can do to sort of standardize that type of stuff, make it easier to find the information. I know HackerOne added a scope tab recently, which is a nice little shift, so you don't have to scroll to the bottom and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's cool. The scope tab, how do I feel about the scope tab, man? I don't know. I feel like the scope tab is a little iffy. It's a little weird because it's helpful and it's nice, but then there's also scope in the policy still. And so it kind of feels like, all right, I still got to read the whole policy and I can't just jump right to the scope. So I think HackerOne needs to make the full switch over if they're going to do it, because that, now I just have two things to read, and one of them is in my immediate field of view, when I get to the page.
100%.
Yeah. Let me see here. So one of the other things that I kind of wanted to talk about was hunter nice to haves on a program. If a program has this, there's a really good chance that they're a good program to work with. So what do I mean by that? So here are some examples. I've seen programs drop treasure maps before, which will say hey, these, and even if it's not a treasure map, if they just say, hey, these are our core assets, these are the assets that we really care about, that's really nice to have, because it allows you to know, okay, if I pop a crit on, www.instacart. I mean, obviously the www is important, but like if I pop a crit on, okay, hold on, let's look, because Instacart actually has this type of section in there, which I really appreciate. Just gonna control F for
core assets.
Yeah, here it is right here. So admin.instacart.com would be a big target. They include their shoppers mobile app very explicitly. And so, when they have stuff like that, it's really helpful for you to be able to focus on the correct targets, and you don't have to work as much. I talked to you earlier about the threat model, right? Like, you don't have to work as much to figure out the threat model. Okay, if it's in this domain, it's probably like, the golden goose of sorts, like this is the thing they want us to go after and get.
Yeah, that was kind of exactly what I was going to say. I think there's definitely two perspectives. There's the company side, which is like, should we really be emphasizing the things that are really critical for our company publicly? And then there's the attacker side, which is this makes it or the researcher side, which makes it so much. I keep saying attacker, but
yeah,
like,
I mean, the terms are both ambiguous. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also like, how do I make my report more impactful, easier? So they're basically drawing the lines and saying, here's what you need to do to make it the most impactful report. It's, customer data, or it's this specific website, or whatever. It's being able to do this certain thing, right? And those are great guidelines and guiding factors for steering your testing in a way that makes it impactful and meaningful the whole time. So if you're testing all of your bugs in a way that's going to give it the most impact, you're going to save yourself the time of having to escalate those bugs later. And you're going to get obviously higher bounties the more that you do that.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that I kind of wanted to point out was there's some programs that will give you free features for their premium, and I think that's great because one of the things that we talk about here in the podcast a lot is like pay the freaking subscription fee, right? If you're going to be hacking an app and there's like some section where it's like, oh, pay $50 and get access to like super premium stuff, pay that shit. Like every single time I've done that, it has resulted in a bad vuln.
Yep.
Without exception, really. I have made 150 times 150x return on investment from that $50 that you put in there, because a lot of times that extra little piece of friction is what the step that other researchers aren't willing to take, and is really separating you from the critical vulnerabilities there. But another step that the researchers often don't take, which is also a differentiating factor, is doing what is required to get access to these test features through the companies a lot of times, which is send the company an email and say, hey, could I please have a premium account? And if you do that and they say yes, and they give you the premium account, well, you just saved yourself $150 or whatever it costs, and you also got access to the premium feature. So I wanted to shout out another one of my favorite programs, SEMrush. This is a program that does search engine optimization. It's a search engine optimization application. Their bounties are pretty good. I normally like to see highs or crits in the 5-figure range, and highs a little bit higher than they do, but their mediums are spot on, and they're pretty willing to give out mediums. So they will, if you reach out to them, give you a premium account to test the app with. So definitely keep that in mind when you're looking at that program. I'm not even sure they say it in their policy anymore.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool approach. I don't think I've ever done that where I've approached them directly, because most of the time I assume that they'll never give me it. But
yeah,
that's something I'm gonna have to try, because I kind of like that approach. I think kind of tangentially attached to that is if you see programs that auto seed test accounts, like Shopify, for example, is a great example, where if you sign up with an @wearehackerone.com email, they pre-seed your account with like test data. I think they mark it in the back end somehow to make it have like,
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, however they do it, it shows that they care, right? It shows that they have gone the extra mile. They've worked with their engineering team. They've made explicit efforts to integrate bug bounty into the engineering workflow to make it so that you can do testing easier without as many hurdles and find better bugs. And that shows a lot, right? It shows that even though they might have to pay more money, that's fine. They'd rather have the security and pay more money than not have the security or make it harder. So that's just like a really awesome thing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did find the section in the SEMrush policy. It's down at the bottom, promo code. They'll give you a promo code with a valid submission, which I think is I think that's a really good sort of indicator as well. I feel like they if you're just giving out free accounts to everybody, then it might invalidate your business model a little bit. That almost becomes a vuln itself there. But if you do it with a valid report submission, it proves that the researcher is actually putting time into the program and has earned, an account. And so, yeah, very innovative there. Really liked to see that with SEMrush.
Cool. What are some of the things, going off our list again, what are some of the things that you look for if you're hacking if you're going back to a target? Are you looking for like news scope, if they're in the news, like what are the types of stuff you look for?
Yeah, I think I often have, with the live hacking event circuit, I have to leave Instacart and go and spend time on different programs and then come back to it, and sometimes other programs kind of steal my attention away for a little bit, but oftentimes I revert back to Instacart, and in the meantime I'll be looking. One of the things that's really cool is GAO has a feature where you can kind of look at recent URLs that were indexed. So I'll use that sometimes to kind of, sniff out new features. I'll look, like you very astutely mentioned, in the news for new features, like, Instacart just launched XYZ, and then kind of go after that. But I'll also go back to the places where I was familiar with, where I, dug in deep the last time I hacked there. And I feel like your mind will kind of look at that and be like, hey, that's a little bit different than it was before. And then you start to see like, okay, this is sort of a new feature added on here. And I've had that happen a couple of times where, just your eye from having tested that extensively is trained to know where that new stuff is and kind of get attracted to that new functionality. So that's kind of where I look.
It's really awesome to hear like that perspective, that there are like those kind of stable programs that you can just keep going back to and enjoy hacking and find new bugs, because I think it's a common misconception that if you do too much hacking, so to speak, on one program, that it's going to dry up, and it can happen, but it depends on the program. It's about finding a good program, right? It's just kind of what we're talking about, and finding one that you can hack long term on and keep finding good bugs, keep providing value to the company, keep having an enjoyable time, making money, provide a living, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I almost want to disagree with you there that it's about the program. I think in some cases it is about the program. Like if their development cycle is like they push new features like once every quarter or like, once every half year or something like that, then it can be absolutely about the program. But a lot of the time, man, I think it's about people getting complacent and saying like, you go in there and you like pwn some stuff and you find a crit and a couple highs and mediums and blah, blah, blah. And then you like sit there and you're like, whew, all right, that program's done, but that's a mistake. You're just starting to understand the mistakes that the vulnerabilities, that are there, the mistakes that this company is making. And if you dive in again and you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and start trying these same techniques, maybe an IDOR worked in a specific type of endpoint. Well, great. Let's try to find other endpoints that sort of resemble this. Do they have path traversal issues? Do they have caching issues? These are all things that can be, systemic across the programs and can be a continuous source of bugs, especially IDORs and access control issues. Those are big. If a company doesn't have that figured out, with middleware or with something like that, then there's definitely a big potential for reoccurring bugs there. Yeah,
that's a great observation. It's nice to hear that. Sometimes it is the program, but it's also you, you don't let yourself slack, right?
Yeah. All right. We are at hour 2. Let's see if there's anything else that wanted to hit. Oh, the other cool thing that I wanted to just go ahead and give a shout out for, two things here. SSRF Sheriff, and somebody I know has a pretty cool GitHub repo about that, right?
I couldn't imagine who that is. Oh, hey, it's this guy named Technoogie. This is crazy.
Genius. Love that guy.
Yeah. So, a little self-promo here. While I was at Uber for one of our live hacking events, we wrote this thing called an SSRF Sheriff. It was an idea originally proposed by Franz. And essentially what it was is an internal service that's designed to make testing SSRF easier. So it's something that you would spin up within your infrastructure from a company side, and you would provide the researchers with an internal IP address, host name, all of the above.
Hopefully both.
And it responds to basically any type of request. So it'll respond to images with various different images, usually with a secret identifier that is within the image. It responds with that identifier in headers, in the body. It has different MIME types. And the whole reason for this is that basically it's designed to adapt to any SSRF situation. If you have basically anything but a blind SSRF, and you can see the response in any way, whether that's an image, whether that's the headers, whether that's whatever. The goal is that, can I hit this service? And if so, I should be able to get this secret string back that will prove definitively that I have an SSRF, right? If you can provide that secret string to the program, you can say, here's your secret string, bam, that's it. No questions asked.
It's the POC or GTFO mentality once again here is like, if you can hit that and you get this back, then boom. And that really, that instant feedback for us as hackers as well is really valuable because, we could spend hours sitting there poking at with an blind SSRF trying to prove internal impact, or you could set up the server, we could hit it in 2 minutes and have that sort of decided. So I love to see when programs set up that tool that Joel made. It's pretty easy to set up, really simple. You just if you've got sort of DevOps in your organization, you can spin it up real easily. And definitely something that adds a lot of value. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to shoot out before we move along is documentation. And I love document. I love being a good document, man. And so,
or a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, bad documentation too. It's better than no documentation. And most websites do have documentation. What's better is when they give you sort of internal documentation for their API, then maybe stuff that contains like GraphQL schemas or maybe like a Postman file or like, Swagger or something like that. Those are all very helpful because we can see as we start, ascending or as we start ascending, as we
we're levitating.
As we start assessing the application, you start finding.
I can feel myself rising off my chair already.
I'm stuck on the Joel. Cut it out, man. Yeah, as you start assessing the application, you get various, you see various common threads across the app, and it's easier to see all of those. When you've got the API documentation, you can see, okay, well maybe. API calls that are structured a little bit like this would be more vulnerable than others. So very, very helpful there. And it also helps us be thorough as well. Sometimes you just sit down and you grind and you just make, a replay tab or a repeater tab for every single API endpoint that you have, and you fuzz the crap out of those. And that's the kind of testing you want from the program side. That's what, really gets you some very thorough results. And so you can really enable that with a Swagger file or a GraphQL schema.
Yeah, and this was reminding me of something. This is probably more specific to live hacking events. I feel like this fell off a little bit, but when I was at Uber, one of the things that I pushed for was providing zone files to researchers.
Man. Yeah.
And this is a little bit trickier to do for a public program to keep it like maintained and up to date. There actually was, I don't remember. I think that Uber does this now. I don't know if they do it publicly, but they basically, we created a tool that would automatically pull like a list of all the domains and then keep it in a file up to date, so that there's no question about like, am I missing something because my recon's bad or my word list is bad. We'll give you a full list of every single domain that exists. Go ahead and find bugs on it, and that removes just another barrier. It makes it much easier.
Security.
Yeah, and it shows that, security is valued. It doesn't matter if it's like a complicated domain. We care about the vulnerability within that domain. Let's see what you got. Sort of just, again, putting money where your mouth is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally dig that too. That really puts everyone on an equal playing field as far as recon goes because, a lot of people have access to specific, I won't call it out specifically, but there's, certain API services that are out there that are very, 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 very expensive that will give you access to a lot more domains than other people have access to. And so, doing something like releasing the zone files puts everyone in equal playing ground, and then it's the person that can hack the app the best that finds the bug, right? And that's kind of like what Jason was talking about last week. One of my favorite quotes from last week was, the whole point of recon is to find more apps to hack,
Yep.
And I think giving the zone files really proves that.
Yeah, don't make it a recon game. Make it a security game.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. I think we'll cut the rest of that doc there, and let me talk about this report really quick, and then we'll peace out. So,
Cool.
I just wanted to I wanted to talk about this report on the pod because I thought this was really creative, and this actually wasn't something that I'd seen before, or at least I hadn't seen it in a while. This is report 1861974. We'll link it in the description of the podcast, but it's a report to Pixiv, which is a Japanese program. I've actually looked at them a lot because their site is in Japanese. And this is in this report, essentially, and I missed this bug, just to be clear, which makes me a little salty. But there's an OAuth flow. And what happens is when the user completes the OAuth flow, there's actually, or in the return URL, there's a path traversal that you can do that allows you to hit any endpoint on the target domain, right? It's only validating, hey, does it start with blah de blah, right? So in the example here, they have /auth/pixiv/callback, and then that's where the cutoff ends there, and then he is able to do .. and then provide a different item number. Now, this used to be a lot more impactful when the browsers were sharing the refer cross origin. And you could just, leak the OAuth token via open redirect or something like that. Then the browsers stopped adding the path and the query parameter to the referrer because of security issues, and that fixed a lot of these issues. But the report writer here has a really innovative solution. There's some feature in the application where you can set up a Google Analytics tracking ID on that page. Isn't this cool? This is cool, right? And when you put up your Google Analytics tracking ID on there, so you can get analytics on how many people are visiting your items or whatever, what that does is it takes the URL and it leaks it to the attacker. So I think this is going to be, and Franz already talks about this in his post message, expose, like very long thing that he released on how to leak, OAuth URLs via post message. But I think there's also going to be another area where this becomes, where these sort of vulns, essentially URI leak or something like that, becomes a thing because they're often able to chain with OAuth, and you often find yourself able to insert or get vulnerable information into the URL and then, have that leaked if you can find a way to get it out. So it's just another attack vector for you guys to be thinking about as you're bug hunting, and anytime you can leak the URL, definitely think about OAuth tokens or think about sensitive information getting placed there.
Yeah, that's a super creative attack scenario. I don't think I probably would have thought that was even possible. But it's like one of those unique application features that, the more familiar you are with the application, the fact that they knew that you could put a Google Analytics tracking ID with your custom Google Analytics and track those URL. That's an awesome, creative way and to exploit this. And it was marked as a high because that, it's a great finding.
And I've worked with the Pixiv program a little bit. I'm not going to diss them, but I've had some problems with them. So the fact that they acknowledge this as a high is really, one, a step in the right direction. Two, shows that how well written the report is and the mentality of the attacker, which is really cool. So kudos to this guy. This is another rant, so I'm going to try to keep it concise because we're getting, a little far here. But you know how we do here. We just go and we go and we go. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is how, in this scenario, the hacker realizes that, when sensitive information makes its way into the URL, there's risk there. When user input gets reflected into the DOM or to the body, there's risk there. And I think a lot of the ways that people address learning how to hack is XSS, IDOR, and they think about these vulnerability categories when in a lot of times the way that you're coming up with these big brain, crazy creative bugs is you're not thinking about it so much as from this perspective of this is a vuln type that I'm familiar with. You're coming at it from this perspective when a application takes attacker information and puts it in a request that they make on the server side, sketchy stuff happens. When that data gets reflected into the DOM, sketchy stuff happens. When sensitive information gets put into the URL, sketchy stuff happens. And that's, so as you're starting to learn how to hack, those indicators should start triggering, like, okay, this is weird. Okay, this is sketchy. Oh, there's post messages flying here. That's inter-page communication. There's an attack vector there. And I think focusing on those instead of focusing on vulnerability types can help you become more of a I don't want to use the word generic, but like a sort of a jack of all trades hacker. Someone who can really that isn't like a textbook hacker that just reads the textbook and finds the IDORs by replacing the number, right? So if you're really shooting for the stars, understanding those threat models in the browser, in the app, in all pieces of the application is really important, I think.
Yeah, it's like that more adaptive kind of style of hacking. It's
Absolutely.
not just that you're not just a scanner, right? You're not just Nessus or whatever. You're a hacker, and you're supposed to be coming up with more creative, because those automated systems, don't worry, they're out there. There's a million of them, and they're doing it all at the same time. Like that attack surface is almost certainly covered.
Yeah.
What you should be focusing on is the more creative things that those scanners are not going to find, that are going to provide real deep inherent value to the security team and to the company who's dealing with this vulnerability, right? It shows, I think this report is a great example of it, where it's just showing that you've gone one step further, right? Like anybody could have just tested OAuth flow. Oh, okay, it doesn't have a redirect, and if it can, it's just on a path. Okay, whatever, next, done, skip, right? But this researcher specifically was like, hang on a second, that is weird. There is risk, right? How can I exploit that risk?
Yeah, phenomenal. Really, really well done there. Good tips to end the podcast with. You got anything else you want to say before we bounce, Joel?
No, I think that's it.
All right, sweet. That's the pod.